Hello, David here, and the project for today is replacing the trunk deck lift support struts on the 98 Ford Contour. Back in the old days, automobile manufacturers used to use torsion bars to hold the trunk deck lid open. It worked quite well, didn't take up much space, and they lasted forever. Nowadays the manufacturers are using gas charge struts which wear out, and they're using them on some hoods as well. So they have to be replaced when they wear out. Let's see if we can find them. Just got a delivery of some new support struts from Rock Auto. Not a sponsor. Let's see what they look like. These are made by Strong Arm, not a sponsor. Part number 4475. You got to be aware when you get struts for your trunk deck lid. Some of them are for deck lids that have a spoiler, and some for a deck lid without a spoiler. The ones for the deck lid with a spoiler have more power because of course the trunk lid is heavier with the spoiler on it. Okay, here's the new strut. Make sure you don't scratch or dent this piston or your gas is going to leak out. On this retainer ring, on the old strut, pry this off in order to remove the strut. On the new strut, you don't have to remove the retainer ring. You just pop this over the ball end that's connected to the trunk and the body of the car. Use a piece of wood or a 2x4 or an assistant to hold the trunk lid deck up so it doesn't fall on you again. The rear end of the strut is easy to get to. It's right here. I don't know if I could get you in there. The front end is hard to get to. It's behind here. You have to fold this carpeting. See that carpeting over there? Kind of have to fold it down, but I could get my hand on it, but I can't get the camera in there. I don't know if you can see it. If I could get some light in there. Right in there. I'm not going to be able to remove that clip. I'm going to just try to pry it off. Not that lucky. I was able to get a little pocket screwdriver under that clip. I'm going to pry it off, but I can't hold the camera and pry it off at the same time. So I'm going to shut the camera off and pry it. So that's it in there. You can see the screwdriver going through the clip. And the clip is off. Fell Lord knows where. I'm going to work on the rear end. My favorite job. Okay. Get my screwdriver under that clip. It's close. Dang, that thing's tight. Oh, almost had it. Okay, I think I'm under it now. Yeah, success. Here's the old strut. Compared to the new strut. Same size. Okay, the way it was originally configured, the piston end goes in first and the reservoir end faces back. And the ball stud comes from the side. So that means I have to push on from the left. It's going to take quite a bit of force. I can't see it, I can only feel it. Can't even feel it. Yeah, I can feel it now. Who designs these things? Okay, so I think the trick is to put the rear on first, and that ball stud comes from the left. And then that should leave the front of the strut positioned right over that ball end, and then the rear ball will hold this up while I pound it in place. I'm gonna have to use like a 2x2 or something to knock it in place. So got to make sure that you turn the piston so that this end is facing to the right, this end is facing to the left, 180 degrees opposite. There, got that out. Now for the front. You know, it is difficult to tell when you're on the stud, and the only way I could do it was I had to hold the trunk lid deck up higher in order to get that socket hovering over the stud, and then I was able to push it on by hand. One way to tell is if this piston is rubbing against the shock tower. See that piston in there? If it's touching the shock tower, you're not on the ball. So I could tell I'm on the ball because there is clearance between this piston and the shock tower. Can you see that? Okay, now I'm going to do the left side, and I am going to put the rear end on first and then do the front part. So the left side was easier to get on, putting the front of the strut on first and then the rear. Since I was able to see the ball stud, it was easier to line up the ball stud with the socket by doing the rear last, and got that done in less than a minute. So it turned out on the right side that that socket wasn't on the ball stud, and I figured in order to get it on right, I'd take the rear end off, so I released the clip on the rear, and it just fell right out. So now I'm going to fasten at the front, get the front on first, and then I'll be able to line up the socket on the rear ball stud. That should go a lot easier, one could hope. Okay, got that right side back on, and I really went fast by putting the rear of the socket over the ball first. And don't think you're going to get a 2x2 in there. You really can only get your hands in there. As a matter of fact, my hand got stuck on my knuckle. I had trouble getting my hand out of there. It was so tight over that shock tower mount. So just push hard on it with your hand and it'll eventually get in. And then I was able to get the rear end in right there once you line it up by adjusting the height of the trunk lid deck, and you should be good to go. You want to see something interesting? These old pistons are chromed. If you remember, the new pistons were black. Those new pistons were nitrided, which is supposed to be harder than chrome. Who knows, maybe they'll last longer. Don't forget to save your old struts. You could cut those up and make punches out of those pistons, but make sure you don't heat or puncture the reservoir, as they're gas pressurized and they could explode. Let's try this again. All right. It's lifting itself up. It's not lifting itself up at this point, but it's not falling. The old struts would allow it to fall. Still holding, still holding. It's falling. Holding, holding, holding. At least I'm not going to have this thing falling on my back or my head anymore. I like it. In my way of thinking, I think the struts ought to lift the trunk lid up all the way. From about here on out, it ought to lift itself up. My way of thinking, I think they should be stronger. They should have more pressure in them. But that's just me. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more great videos from David GPO.